evening everybody. We are back on Queens Road in Oldham. We're going to take a walk through the park while I tell you a story, because we're going to look at a specific statue. But I wanted to start here at number 17. I love these old posts, look at them. It's a beautiful house this. It's got everything on it. Attic, cellar, beautiful original door. So this house was owned in the late 1800s by a chap called Squire Knot. Now if that name's familiar to you, either you know who he was or you're obviously familiar with the pub. So I've put the footage in for you that I've took this morning at the top so you can see it. But I don't know why I've decided to walk in the road. In fact, I'll get back on pavement. Anyhow, I think it's 55 Yorkshire Street, Oldham, which is the corner of Yorkshire Street and St Mary's Way. So as you can see now, it's being changed into a Turkish restaurant. Prior to that, it was a pub. And prior to that, it was a Wetherspoons pub, and it was called the Squire Knot. Now I'm going to tell you about the connection and how this came about and why he's famous, and we'll launch into it. So, back in, I'd say I'm going to say 1858, around about that time, Squire Knot had a photographic studio. He's actually known as an Oldham artist. I don't know if he was an artist in the sense that he drew things. I can't find any drawings or paintings, only famous photographs. And when I say famous photographs, basically he took some pretty good photographs. Well, he took some photographs that's enabled us to make it. Well, that enabled them back in the 1800s to make a statue in the park of a famous Oldham. I'm going to tell you the story about that person as well. But just to give you the background on Squire Knot, so Oldham photographer in the mid 1800s. He took some very famous photographs. There's a man shadowboxing up there. See that? Got loads of energy, hasn't he? He's stopped now. Should we walk this way? Or should we go that way? I think we'll walk that way and then walk back round. No, we'll go this way, sod it. Right. Okay, so he basically took these photographs. Now the photographs, some of them, quite a few of them, are on display in Oldham Art Gallery. He took one particular photo, which I'll try and put in, but it's a massive one, and it's basically a panoramic view over Oldham in the mid 1800s. So you can see all the old houses, all the mills, people in the street. Really interesting. He took some really good photographs. Now, this one photograph in particular that he took was of a famous Oldhamer. Now, this fellow was called Joseph. This fellow was called, just hang on a second. I just wanted to let the people get past because the kids were talking and I was having to gob it over the top. Right, that's the old launch. Oh, this is special thanks to Simon as well. Apparently he likes it when I point things out in my video. But this is, I think it annoys him actually. But this is the where they used to keep the launch, and that's the Boathouse Cafe. It's gorgeous today. We'll have a look. We'll have a look at Boating Lake and everything if you want. See what's what. Anyway, let me tell you the rest of this story because you know what I'm like. So, Joseph Howarth, he was born in Oldham in the early 1800s. Now, when he was born completely blind. Never saw a thing in his entire life. He wasn't born into a rich family, but that didn't seem to make any difference in terms of, you know, how he got ahead. I mean, think about it. Blind back in those days, it would have been I would imagine it would have been a real challenge, you know. There wasn't any of the help that people get now. I don't know. Anyway, Joseph Howarth started off his life in Oldham, born into poverty, as most people were that day in those days, and he made a living by selling pots and pans, I believe, on Oldham Market. Now, I'm just going to let these people get past. Sorry, I'll just wait for them people to go past. I don't like filming kids, so... yeah, so he made his living by selling pots and pans on Oldham Market. And Basically, what he, sorry, I'm being a bit slow today, aren't I? So basically, he made his living by being an Oldham market. He had a pots and pans stall, and he used to scream at the top of it. Well, not scream, but he used to bellow. I'll use that word. He used to bellow at the top of his voice. Pots, pans, or whatever, you know, whatever market traders say. No different in that days to this day, although we haven't got a market as much in Oldham anymore, but that's a different video. So he used to shout out pots and pans and this, that and the other, and folk used to come along and they used to buy from him. Now, it weren't long until the post of town crier, or Bellman as it was known by both names back then, the job became available. And because, look at it, look at that. Look at him. He's landed in the tree. Yeah, so anyhow, this I was trying to zoom in on that errand for you, but I can't see him now. He's in a tree somewhere, strange enough. Yeah, so the job for town crier came up, and because of his voice, it was a booming voice, and apparently you could hear him from one side of town to the other. Could hear him all over, so he were prime for the job as town crier. The only problem was that obviously, as I explained, he was blind from birth. He couldn't see a thing. Now, as you know, town criers, they usually stand on the steps of the town hall and they open up a scroll and they read the day's events or the news for whatever they've got. But Joseph wasn't able to do that because obviously he couldn't read because he couldn't see. So what they did, or what was fortunate, he possessed a memory that not very many people possess. He could remember anything. He was able to sort of so yeah, he possessed this amazing memory and he could remember anything. Tell him once and he could remember it. They said that he was a very religious man, and he could basically tell you any verse of the Bible, on what page it were, what paragraph it were, and he'd never even read the Bible because he couldn't see it, but from what he'd been told, such a page, such a paragraph, he could just amazing, an amazing skill. So basically what used to happen is of a morning when he went about his duties, I would imagine there'd be someone there within the council who would basically read out to him the news that they wanted everyone in the borough to hear about. And then what Joseph would do is he'd get his bell and he'd put his coat on and he'd set off and stand on the town steps and town hall steps, and he'd shout out over Oldham what were going on. Now the reason why I've stopped at this stone was to tell you a little tale. Now this stone was installed when the park was created in 1865. It was actually gifted from a local landowner. He had it on his land for a number of years and said, you know what, if you can move this out of my field, you can have it. Apparently it's got some really interesting geological information in terms of how it's formed. It's a beautiful looking rock, and a lot of people might recognise it as the one we all used to climb on as kids. But an interesting fact, this was brought by I think it was 4 or 6 Shire horses on a big carriage, and they carried it all the way down Park Road, all the way to the entrance where we came into the park, and they left it for a few days at the entrance. They left it for a few days at the entrance, and when they come to move it to this spot, they couldn't do because it had sunk into the ground, so they had to get the horses back. Apparently all the chains broke. It was a very difficult feat. But yeah, eventually they managed to install it here, but before they put it down, they put a time capsule underneath it, which has, I think, information from the day and also the geological information behind the stone. So it's under there. I mean, if you can get this stone moved to look at it, then I suppose you could do. But yeah, it's not moved now since 1865, this stone. Interesting. So we're going to get to Joseph's statue. I'm going to tell you the rest of it. They left it for a few days at the entrance, and when they come to move it to this spot, they couldn't do because It had sunk into the ground, so he had to get the horses back. Apparently all the chains broke. It was a very difficult feat. But yeah, eventually they managed to install it here, but before they put it down, they put a time capsule underneath it, which has, I think, information from the day and also the geological information behind the stone. So it's under there. I mean, if you can get this stone moved to look at it, then I suppose you could do. But yeah, it's not moved now since 1865, this stone. Interesting. So we're going to get to Joseph's statue. I'm going to tell you the rest of it. Forget, I'm going to, you know what, I'm on edge today, mate. I do not know why. I did have some tequila last night. Maybe it's the after effects of that. Anyway, where was he up to? So Joseph would stand on the steps of Oldham Town Hall. He'd shout out the news of the day as and when it needed to be shouted, and it could be heard all over the town centre. Now, bearing in mind, it wasn't all retail like it is now. You know, you had the market, and then around that you had houses. So you had houses up and down Yorkshire Street, Union Street, Henshaw Street, all around the market. Various churches, chapels. It was a heavy residential area. So he shouted out all of this news, and that was it. Now, he held the job, I think, for 46 years. And he got by in life. He didn't actually have an house, you know. But he got by in life by sleeping on people's couches. Yeah, he'd sleep on folks' couches, friends, family, and that's how he lived. Anyhow, while he was alive, Joseph had reason to go to Squire Knot's photographic studio, and it was pretty well known around the town that he didn't have much money, and he used to do favours for people and they'd do favours for him. So he approached Squire Knot to have his photograph taken, and Squire Knot said, he turned up apparently and he had on like all his clothes for church, like his big top hat and you know, his suit and everything else. Very smart. And he turned up and he said, "We take my photograph?" And although I'd never see it, but Squire Knot said, "Yeah, I will, Joseph. I'll do it for nothing, but only on the proviso that you have the photograph taken with the bell, the town crier's bell." So Joseph went, "Right, fair enough then. Free photo. I'll pose with my bell, not a problem." So that photograph was taken. Now else we thought about it, and then Joseph passed away. Now when he passed away, a lot of people in Oldham were really sad because he was a notable character. He was a very nice man. He was highly regarded. He was a religious man. You know, he lived an honest and wonderful life, and he was greatly missed. So they decided that what they were going to do is they'd get together and they'd basically commission a statue of Joseph in his memory. So the danger was, how do we make a statue of Joseph when we don't actually know what he looks like? But we do, because Squire Knot took this photograph. So they got in touch with Squire Knot. He basically handed the photograph over, and then they got to work on a statue. And this is the statue. Be familiar to a lot of people. You might not know the story behind it. So this is the statue of Joseph. I've featured him in other videos, but I've never done a specific one of his story before. This statue is the only statue in the UK that has a top hat, and this is an exact copy, as best you can get in stone, to the photograph that Squire Knot took. And if you look, there's the bell. That's the bell that Squire Knot said he would like him to hold in the photo. But look at his face. It's weird actually, because if you look at that statue, his eyes are open, but actually on the photograph they're not. His eyes are shut. Now just to show you the inscription on it: Joseph Howarth, upwards of 40 years, the well-known blind Bellman of Oldham, erected by voluntary subscriptions, as I said, people all put in, presented to the Park Committee May the 9th, 1868. He died on the 17th day of May, 1862, in his 76th year of his age. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to walk back to the car and I'm going to film a few nice bits in the park. Feel free to fast forward if you want to the next bit, but what I'm going to do now to finish the story off, I'm going to take you to Cheddington Cemetery and we're going to go and look at Joseph's grave, because that's where he's buried and he's got a headstone. But there's an interesting story behind the headstone based off what I've told you in this first part of the story. I hope I haven't been all over the place today, you know. I don't know what's up with me. Usually I'm just waffle, but today I don't know, I feel a bit, like I said, a bit on edge. Probably because I've got a lot going on. Nothing bad, all good, and I'll get into it on another video, but let's see what we can see around the park. Hey, we're just walking past the conservatory. Is that what it's called? It is, isn't it? This is an original building. I think it was built about 4 or 5 years after the park was originally installed, but I just thought I'd stop and show you that one that's usually full of plants, but it's trying to focus on the bloody fence, but I think you can see it's completely empty. That's obviously because, you know, with this COVID, they're not tending to the plants, so they've shut it. Yeah, it says. Oh, crikey. Right, we're just coming up to the parade at the top, so I just thought I'd come back on. If anybody's interested in the full story of the park, like a full tour, I actually have a video on my channel. Now, I took it on my iPad, so it's not that great in terms of, you know, big screen. But it's actually quite informative, and I did it during winter a few years back. So I tell you the story behind all the statues, what used to be where, what's been recreated. Obviously I told you the story of the stone, but there's more, there's loads and loads of tales to tell you about. You know, everyone's doing, yes, have a look, it's on channel. Everybody's doing exercise. That fella's limbering up, look. Must be going for a run. Yeah. Oh God, oh guess what? I was just walking up by the conservatory then, friggin' pigeon attack again. But not those dirty ones that you get like inside buildings, you know, those fat, you know, those fat ones, the clean ones. You know which ones I mean, don't you? Wood pigeons. 4 of them flew at me. And then they flew over this bush and then decided they wanted to fly back. Freaking sick of them pigeons. I get attacked by them everywhere I go. Look at that beautiful tree. Who remembers the tea rooms that used to stand up there? I think my mum said they knocked them down in the 60s. They were beautiful, original Victorian tea rooms. Find a picture and put it in so you can see it. Look at that little dog there. Watch him. Like a little teddy. Look at that. Oh. Right, so yeah, as I was saying, I'm going to go back to the car now, drive down to Cheddington Cemetery, show you Joseph's grave, and I feel like I need to do more filming though. I don't think I'm done filming, I don't know. See how I feel. I might go out and do another video yet. So he's going out tomorrow. I could just lie in the garden all day, but we'll see. Look at that sky today, everybody. How beautiful is that? And look at the shadow off that big oak tree. I think it's an oak, innit? Got to be on it, that. It's huge. If you're a tree expert and you know, let me know. But you know what? What's interesting about this tree? Look at the size of it. I'd say it's a good... Wouldn't you say that was a good 200-300 years old? I mean, it's huge. So it's been here long before the cemetery has. That's what I'm guessing anyway. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. Right, we're going to find Joseph's grave. Now, if you remember what I told you, Joseph didn't have much. He didn't have an house, and he relied a lot on people around him to help him out. And that meant that he stayed at people's houses. And yeah, and what's interesting about Joseph, we're coming up to his grave now. I think it's weird that I know where every single bleeding grave in the cemetery is. Yeah, so what's weird about Joseph is when he died, he went in the grave of someone else. He was taken into the grave of a family, of the Ramsden family. I'll find out about the Ramsdens. I don't know anything about them. But here we go. So we've got Henry Ramsay, late of Oldham, who died 10th of December 1861, aged 66. Also his wife, who died in 1875. Also of Edward Kirby, the beloved husband of Anne A. Kirby of 244 Middleton Road, who died March 29th, 1899, aged 70. And Mary Ann. So the list goes on, and then look at that right at the bottom. We've got also Joseph Howarth of Oldham, who died May the 17th, 1862, in his 76th year of his age. Blind from childhood, but otherwise senses exquisitely acute, and mental powers remarkable. He held the office of town crier in this borough for 43 years with singular credit. He was a good man, a Wesleyan Methodist, and sustained the office of local preacher and class leader for nearly half a century. He was extensively known and greatly esteemed throughout his life, and died trusting in the merits of his Redeemer. So there you have it, the story in full. Squire Knot, who had photographic studio in Oldham, made some fantastic pictures that are on display in Oldham Library. Happened to one day take the photograph of a blind Bellman, who was that well renowned and liked that people paid to have a statue erected for him. That statue is erected in Alexandra Park. It's the only statue in the UK that has a top hat. I don't know how that stands in the world. I'm sure there's another top hat somewhere else, maybe on some of the statues in... No, there can't be, because it's the only one in the UK. Waffling. Anyway, fantastic story. Just another one that I've dug up. I've got lots more to tell, but I think the next video is going to be a tour round. Now, what do you want to see? Because I was thinking of doing Fitton Hill, then I thought no, I'm going to do Clarksfield, because it's a very interesting place to show you on Clarksfield. I don't know, where do you want to see next? I'll go on suggestion and we'll take it from there. So thank you for watching this video. I'm going to get another one up this weekend, and I'll speak to you soon. You know, you won't believe this one. I've just drove all the way home, had some dinner, thought right, I'll edit the video, sit down, start doing it. Remembered I hadn't bloody filmed Squire Knot's grave to prove that he's a real person. So I've had to drive back to Chadderton Cemetery, but that's fine because I can show you. So Squire Knot the artist, this is his gravestone. So Anne's in there, the beloved wife of Squire Knot of Queens Road Oldham, who died January 23rd, 1891, aged 63. Also Alfred, their son, who died December 31st, 1895, 39. And also the above named Squire Knot, who died at Southport August the 8th, 1905, in his 78th year. You know what I think he's done? I think his wife's died, then his son's died, and I think he's thought, you know what, forget, I'm gonna move away. Excuse me. But they brought him back to Cheriton, or brought him back to Oldham to bury him. So, and a good me, I drove all the way back just to film that for you. Oh, I love this cemetery, me. Really, really love it.